Hello, welcome to this podcast. I'm Rivas and this is Mr. Echo.
This time he got it right. What are we talking about today, Rivaj?
We posted a Reddit. Our subreddit was a little famous.
Yeah, it wasn't famous.
we-
We can apparently Nepal is free and we have democracy, but people don't have liberty,
Right.
and they don't want to talk about the subreddit or whatever forum we posted on, and they don't want us to mention what their names and. They did not understand the whole thing of the podcast. We're fictional. This is
Yeah.
so meta. We're like breaking the fourth wall here. These two characters, they're fictional. How do you say Nepal, man?
Nepal.
Yeah, I say Nepal. If you want me to say it in your podcast the way he says it, I'll come in there and I'll say it. Buy me lunch, buy me tea, whatever. But in my podcast, mine, get the concept. This fictionalized universe is mine. I say it whatever way I want. If you get offended, close the video. If you get offended about anything in the world, just like close your screen, not think about it, and don't get stuck in the details, right?
And don't downvote others in Reddit.
I don't give a shit about that. You do whatever you want, like but like within you can criticize us or whatever, but within our like universe, we're not never gonna stop saying things the way we want, because liberty and freedoms are two different things. Okay, like you cannot come into and we're not preaching you. Thank you for like actually watching our video and like pointing it out to us that you didn't like certain things, and that's what we want. You are free to discuss, like we are free to discuss
Mm-hmm.
within our own realm, and that's like what we're like talking about today. Like that's I say like too many times. We should put a like counter, but I'm not
Like counter.
going to, because it's my podcast and his podcast, and we'll do shit the way we want. We'll talk about anything we want, and that's liberty, right?
If you guys can count the like times,
Yeah, that would be great.
that'd be great. We could mention you in another podcast.
Yes, yeah, it's like, but like we'll mention you in a way that you want, because that's your liberty and freedom too.
Yeah, exactly.
We respect ours too, and we'll respect yours. And yeah, like I like the fact that you guys commented on the certain things that we do in this, and trust us. Like, there's another one. We do all things intentionally here. If you see like bad edit, it has been intentional, because
Mhm.
we don't really give a shit about like how we produce this, because we want the viewer to come grow with us organically, and that's a very hard concept to grasp, because here we are talking about freedom of speech and liberty, and on the other side we're complaining to the fact that you guys are telling us what to do. Yeah, you have that right and liberty, and we'll listen to you. We're acknowledging that fact, but we don't have to do it the way you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wanted acknowledgement, you got it. But
You
what
got
then? Like, it depends upon the person to do what or not. Like, you can tell your mom to cook meat every day. She would acknowledge it, but it's her right to do it, or like cook it or not. Or you, like your mom doesn't have to cook. Your dad could cook too.
Uh-huh.
Like, fuck, dude, we'll get into trouble for saying mom cooks. I cook at my house.
Yeah, that's
certainly,
a
sometimes.
sexist comment.
Yeah, but my mom cooks in my house most of the time, and she doesn't let anybody do it, because she likes to pamper me, my sister, and my dad, and herself.
Mm-hmm.
And she values that, and I like that. And certainly, I've seen other households in other countries where dad cooks, and like they like that, and that's their liberty, you know. Yeah, how did we go from like talking about Reddit comments to cooking?
Cooking,
Yeah.
liberty.
Liberty, yeah, this is our podcast. So the other thing that we like got a comment on was like, yeah, we're self-indulging today. Like, we're gonna talk about a lot of things that we were commented on subreddit, but actually nobody commented on our YouTube video.
No comments.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's
We're
good.
we're not. I promised myself I wasn't gonna read the YouTube comments, but I was gonna read the subreddits, like the thing. And we're not gonna name the subreddit we read up all our comments on, because they told us specifically untoward attention is not required. Now, in a way, we're talking about it, and it's gonna bring untoward attention. But like, we didn't mention your subreddit name at all.
At all.
There's thousands of subreddits out there, and if a person has the willingness to watch our video and then go look up the subreddit, you should grant that person like that choice to
that
find your
person
subreddit.
deserves it.
Yeah, like that person will find you anywhere, regardless of what. And if that person is interested to find that subreddit, you actually got it. And the other issue was like they were talking about the fact that there's not a lot of people that are continuing their podcast after episode 3 and 4. And consequently, we were saying we're gonna record one every week, but then there are issues, and now we know why they don't record past 3 and 4, because there's X number of people working together on a certain podcast, and they all have to come together and have certain dates, and they gotta figure out where the equipment is, if the venue is free or not, and all the things that the logistical things that come through when you're trying to do an event. And that's what happens, and we're learning in this process. It's not like we just like, I say like too much, don't I?
No. Like.
What I want to say is it's very easy to get distracted by the fact that you have a great idea and then you want to execute it, but you don't think it through well far enough. We thought it through well far enough, but life is such a mystery puzzle that you have things that come in your way every day that you cannot skip, like your birthday, or like that you get sick, or it said like again. I was speaking slowly, so
that is the like must have been there.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
It's because I'm saying like because I got dislikes on Reddit. I'm offsetting the thing.
I guess we got dislikes on YouTube as well. 4 dislikes.
Yeah, but we got 6 likes, and that's all. That's all me with different accounts. So it's on YouTube. It's not me with different accounts. Yeah. Anyways, we got 2 subscribers. One of them happens to be somebody he knows, and I don't know which one the other one is. Like, was it you? Like, I don't know.
No. I haven't subscribed from my personal account.
He's so lazy he hasn't even updated the website. I told him to do that the next day. He's very lazy. Yeah, I'm lazy too, but I
not as lazy as me.
Yeah, not as lazy as him. Like I call him every day, but he doesn't call me back. It has been a one-way communication. So communication in any professional or personal relationship has to be two-way, and it can't be one-way. That's how you grow. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, well, how did I go there? So, what were we talking about initially?
6 likes and 4 dislikes, right?
Let's not indulge ourselves too much on us. What do we want to talk about today? Like, the fact that we're going to send Nepal is going to... Nepal is going to send a couple of satellites up in April. And that's like Monta Boishak. And if you don't know what Boishak is, learn the language, motherfuckers. Things told to me by some idiot Americans over in America. Yes, I was there. Showing off. It doesn't matter, man. You just gotta visit another country. Even if it is India, you gotta go there. Like, and not that I'm like discounting India. It's a great country, but you have to go outside of your own bubble. Getting back to what the satellite thing. I met the director of the National Nepal NAST, basically NAST.
Nepal Association of Science and Technology.
It's a brain fart. And that gentleman was pretty nice. He was very receptive, and he was very enthusiastic. I haven't met so many people so high up in the hierarchy that are so enthusiastic about it. And I saw the report yesterday on some news show, and he had a great interview, and he seemed like a genuine person who wanted to get us up in the 21st century, and that was very interesting because Google and so many other such multinational companies, they have a satellite and we don't, and that's such a nice thing to do. And yesterday, our honorable prime minister went to some economic forum or summit, and I saw the whole live stream of him going through the airport, and he had like a whole parade going on, and I was like, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's neither here or there, but like having to see, I haven't gotten the chance to see so much like administrative stuff or cultural stuff, and like I enjoy the little things, It was out of my politics. I do not care who's prime minister or not, but watching that whole ceremony, that just made me feel nice. I haven't seen that a lot.
And about that satellite thing, do you know any other details about it?
It's going to be it was helped through Japan, and then they're gonna send it through the.
And they're launching in the U.S., right?
Yeah, they're launching through Virginia.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be launched in April, depending upon the weather patterns. And Japan has liaisoned NASA to do it, and Nepal spent NRS 1 crore and 80 lakhs on it, and it was
NRS 1 crore 80 lakhs.
Yeah, I think SpaceX. I don't know. My figures must be off. We can Google this. Takes $200,000 to send their any satellite up in space. That's their launch fee, and $200,000 is a lot more than 1 crore 80 lakhs, right? And I saw the size of the satellite. I thought it was just like this big, but turned out it was pretty huge. Huge. Yeah, and going back to huge.
And is that a Japanese satellite?
No, like.
Made in Japan?
Made in Japan, but two Nepalese people, when they're scientists from NASA, went there, and they actually developed it over like a certain period of time. And I'm actually proud about that fact, because in a scientific community, whenever there is development from a developing country, that means people are catching up. That means the nation is rebuilding itself from whatever processes it was going through. And that's a good sign.
That's a very good sign.
And also there's like a talks about having like a nuclear research facility in Nepal. And that's another good thing about the scientific progress that's going on. And I actually like all the detailed work that is going on in Nepal.
And about waterways as well this week.
Yeah, man, but... There's so much like I've heard about that. It's comedic. It's comedic, but not in a derogatory way to anybody involved with that process. But like every time I think about like waterways, like I just assume like said like too many times. I just assume that we have other things to invest on than waterways, but like
16,
who am I?
16 employees. That's a lot, I guess. For the
but man, let me not talk about it because But
it's actually good. You connect the riverways to the sea, right?
Yeah, but here's the
The plan is pretty good, but I think it's too soon to hire 16 people for it.
Here's the caveat. Okay, going back personally, let me give you a little bit of history. Like the place I got my bachelor's degree on had a program where I chose to do mechanical engineering, but they had naval architecture and marine engineering, right? And before I was there, some of my friends were contemplating studying naval architecture and marine engineering. But the other part about it is there are so many nations that have so many laws regarding maritime laws and who they hire. It's a very delicate subject. It's almost like the space industry, and I've already talked to you personally about like all the issues with that. And for a nation like ours, where we don't have our own navy and like we're just developing, I don't see personally, and it's my personal opinion. Nobody has to subject to that. We could be spending much more time doing other entrepreneurial stuff than doing that, because if you really think about it, a nation is like a corporation, right? People are involved with it. People get jobs. If the nation tanks, the people tank and they don't get food to eat. Similar to a corporation, if you really think about it, the like basic concept of it all.
If it grows, people also grow with it, and their lifestyle changes. It's similar to a corporation.
So, like, comparing that to Microsoft, let's say Microsoft is another nation. It's employing people. Mm-hmm. It's got a certain amount of, like, it's got a budget, it's got an economy, and it's got an ecosystem. The highest person is that. And, it's got a hierarchy, right? And if the recent example is their phones failed, and back when they really launched their phones at first, they did like a funeral for iPhones. And think about it. 10 years later, iPhone might not be the best in the market, but they still have like a large market share. And they may be changing their direction, but iPhone's still there. But Windows, they chose to discontinue their product. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying Windows is a bad company. Like Microsoft is a really nice company, and I use Microsoft.
They did a funeral on iPhone.
Yeah. So they started to my point is they started to go in areas they didn't know about, and they didn't have any sort of game about. I'm not saying you shouldn't diversify. Mm-hmm. Do what you want, but you should be good knowing what your strengths are. If Nepal wants to go and become like a nation where we have beaches and people want to come and hang out in beaches, we don't have any. But if you want to be a mountainous nation where people come to trek, we are mountainous, so we choose to go that way. Similarly, we could be choosing to have
proper railways,
yeah. And also, now this might be an unpopular opinion, and imagine this is we're not supporting or saying anything about anything at this matter. We're just saying it's out there. 1970s happens, right? And Nixon and Reagan happens, and guess what happens? Weed gets banned from Nepal. Now we're getting the meat to the issue. Weed gets banned in Nepal. In 1990s, America and some of the states in America start opening up to weed. And all the corporate people over there, the people who actually wanted to invest in money, they start patenting things from Nepal, India, all the seeds and everything. Now, if you go to any of the weed growing nation like Canada or states in like California and Colorado, they have such a diversified portfolio of all those plants, and we have like organic matter lying around in our country, and we banned it because of America. Now, there's no debating that. And
America banned it all over the world,
and they are opening it up in our country, and we're becoming tighter about it. Now, there's the hypocrisy. I'm not saying they're the villain. No, I'm saying we have to use the resources we're utilizing, right? If Canada is running out of like cannabis, they ran out of cannabis, and they have a lottery thing. That happened, right? That means there's a market for that, and we're not saying you should have like a market, and you shouldn't have a market, and you should openly like distribute it. I know there should be regulations, but that doesn't mean you shun everything around it. I know it's part of our culture, but it has to be moderated, like anything else in the world. Mm-hmm. Like being brave and defending our nation is also a part of the culture. That doesn't mean every Nepalese guy wields a kukri and starts chopping people. That doesn't happen, right? Same thing with cannabis. But we might be strung up by our parents about talking it this way. But just to clarify, that's just our opinion in this podcast. Doesn't mean we go out and like tell kids to do drugs. We tell kids not to do drugs. If you see the forewarning before the whole thing, there is a warning about that.
And we are fictional characters.
Yeah, we're so meta. Like, so meta. If you met him out in public, he's screaming his lungs out. I am much more reserved. Like, I don't talk to people. I don't talk to, like, normal people, general people. They disgust me. People disgust me. Am I talking about myself, or am I talking about, like the character stuff? I'm lost right now.
You're talking about yourself, not the character, I guess. Yeah.
But who am I? Who are you? What is this? Anyways, yeah. Did we just go from like subreddit to this, to that? Yeah. What else do we have to talk about? Yeah, we had written it down. I've written it down right there in the screen. I've written it down right there.
Okay.
We're not gonna edit any of this. Like,
No.
this is what you get. Shit equipment, shit podcast. Not shitty
Shit
topics
editing.
though. Like, our arguments are well thought out of, but like they still take a while to formulate because we're still kids. We're not Jordan Peterson. Ooh, Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
So, like, do you know? Like, can you elaborate them on who Jordan Peterson is?
No, you should do that.
Okay. Jordan Peterson is this professor of psychology, in psychiatry, and he was a professor. I think he still might be. I don't know. Does he have tenure?
Yeah.
I don't know. He has this book called 12 Rules of Life, minimizing chaos. I don't remember, but I really like his online lectures because it helps you be like, he tries to help you in a positive manner where he doesn't condescend you for being who you are, but he just tries to tell you in the most rational way.
Have you read the book?
Yeah, I have the book in my house. You want to borrow it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I do.
But
Want
there's
to read
like
it. 12 Rules for Life, right?
Yeah, and his other book, The Maps of Meaning, that's what I've been meaning to like read. But getting back to it, Jordan Peterson, his lectures are pretty good. I subscribe to it, but certain other people from like the far left and the far right, they kind of think of him like as the opposite. So the far right thinks of him as like the most progressive liberal, while like the far left thinks of him as like a Nazi. So, and in one of his interview, he was called a Jew supporter by a publication in UK,
Okay.
and by a publication in America, he was called a Nazi. So in the same day, he was called both sides of the spectrum. So it was so funny, and he talked about this. And I don't think some of his arguments are like, I don't subscribe to all of them, but most of his rationale, even if I don't agree with him, is true. I like to hear him out. And he stopped eating. Now, here's the weirdest part. After some time, he has a daughter who has a certain medical condition where she can't eat anything but meat because she will have body issues.
Okay.
And he's mentioned that in one of his interviews that his family condition is that like it runs in his family. So he stopped eating other food and started eating meat more proactively.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he stopped having those issues in his body. So I was like,
What?
at first when I heard Jordan Peterson only eats meat, I was like, what? Like, has he gone off the rails? But when I actually heard about it, it was funny, and I kind of understood it because some people can't eat meat and they decide to go on like a vegetarian diet, and that's good, you know, like do what your body wants, and that's pretty good
That's
to
very good.
support your daughter in like such a such a participating manner, you know. Like if your daughter can't eat meat, you kind of support them, thinking it will help you too. But yeah, so yeah, he has a book, 12 Rules of Life, Antithesis to Chaos, and that's a pretty good book. I haven't gotten through all of it because it takes a while to read it and like absorb it.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a profound book, and the other book is
Maps of Meaning.
Maps of Meaning. The other one of the books that I really liked reading this past week was Walden. by Henry Thoreau.
Okay.
He was like one of the best anarchists of his time, and I'm not suggesting I'm one or the character I'm playing is one, but he wrote this book called Civil Disobedience, and it was such a profound book. And you want to know what book he read while he was writing his own book and formulating his ideas? Guess. Like the one book he read. You probably read that book. Most of the Nepalese know about that book. Most Hindus know about that book.
Hindus?
Yeah.
Ved? Did he do?
No, Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita.
He was such a spiritual person, you know.
Okay.
He had this little cabin. He sat by a pond called Walden, and he just sat there for months and months on, and he formulated his ideas. At that time, in America, there was slavery, and he was against slavery at that time. And he was such a nice character in the American history, and his books inspired Gandhi. Think about the circle of life, like the Indian and the Nepalese and like this
the Hindu thing
went and inspired him, and in a way inspired Mahatma Gandhi. That tells us like history repeats itself, you know, in a way.
The circle of life.
Yeah. The Lion King, they're coming up with a remake, right?
I didn't know that.
Live action remake. They're actually
live action remake.
Yeah, I don't know how they're gonna like get a lion to perform that. No, they're gonna animate that. Did you not see the trailer?
No.
People go check out the trailer of The Lion King and subscribe to PewDiePie. T-Series is almost about to win, and we don't want that. Like, bitch lasagna. But subscribe to PewDiePie. You don't have to subscribe to us, but if you don't subscribe to PewDiePie, I hope your dick rots.
Those who have dicks.
In the next life too, if you don't do it.
This book is really old, 1854, right?
Yeah, it's really old. Yeah, Civil Disobedience. I'll tell. And what I've been needing to read is Plato's books, like all the books that he wrote, and why is because I want to improve my life, and these are the things that you can't live without, like having a good mindset, understanding somebody else's point of view. And it is very hard for me to understand somebody else's point of view because I'm a very hard-headed person. I don't like to immediately accept change, but I have to. Life is change. Imagine me, I didn't have a beer, and I did. I didn't have money for some time, and then I did. That's change. That's positive change.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm going to have it all. I'm not going to have hair all my life. I know I'm going to go bald. That runs in my family. And somebody might be writing, bitch, nobody runs in your family. You're fat. But
actually, I've started losing a lot of hair recently. It's really thin.
Yeah, I'm actually proud about the fact that I'm losing it. That does tell me I come a great line of bald people and that still managed to get laid. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. Yeah, but it's all fun and games until you actually sit down and think about yourself, not your outward personality, but how you address yourself inside your head. And how you
think about yourself.
How not everybody else thinks about you, but how you think about yourself. And
how you self-portray yourself.
And did you hear that speech? I'm recalling that speech from Matthew McConaughey when he actually won the Oscar, where he says, "My hero is me 10 years in the future." and I'm always trying to be that guy. And 10 years later, when I'm that guy, my hero is already myself 10 years in that future, and I'll never be that guy. And that was a such a nice little thing. And then that kind of told me who I've always perceived myself to be. I've always wanted to grow up, but even now I want to grow up. But I'm already grown up according to a 10-year-old me, but I haven't grown up mentally. You see, and going back to this discussion of liberty and freedom, it seems that everybody has freedom to speak or write anything online these days, but they don't have the liberty to grow up with it. For example, you might have somebody in your family, a kid, who doesn't know what to say. He might say or she might say inappropriate things, right? You'll take that lightly. But when that person is over 18 or 21 or looks like us, and they might not know certain things, they might not have grown up with a certain background or certain point of view, and when they say things, we take it as an absolute. We take it as that person is that, and they're not learning that. And for us ourselves, we take it as when we say something and somebody gets offended, like, oh, I didn't know. Maybe next time I'll take that into perspective and I'll change myself. But when others talk to us, we don't think of it that way. And I'm not saying I employ that method, but every day I see in my behavior that's changing a little bit. And that starts from you, like you analyze your actions and they analyze their actions. It's much easier to communicate in an effective manner. Even if somebody offends you by writing a Twitter post, right? Or saying something on Facebook, think about it. Nobody's grown up. Even 45-year-old people, they're learning to do things, new things every day.
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't let them the chance to make mistakes and then teach them or show them your side of the coin, they're always going to be like that. Let's say you approached me and said, I look a little bit more Indian and I should go back to India, right? You could say that, like, if you didn't know me. There are people like that. I meet them in the bus. Although, my last name and the way I talk and my background is, I might look like that, but I am bona fide Nepali, and when I talk about it, oh, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, there's no Hindi accent in it. But they think, just because of perspective, they think about it that. And I don't take it as, like, a big thing, but, like, people who actually write on Facebook about that, they're like, oh, this person's things are absolute. We don't let that area of error occur between them. Even scientists make mistakes, and we let them have mistakes because they learn from their mistakes. And society is much, much, much more harder to do than science, right?
Yeah. There are a lot of these racial disputes in social media. If you see Nepali posts about this racism, not exactly racism,
but ethnicism.
Ethnicism, right? And you start reading the comments. I normally start reading the comments, and it really saddens me.
Oh, that's why I rarely read comments except on subreddits.
Did you read those comments?
No, I read, dude. Who replied to those?